Good morning. Welcome to Kailul Baker. Those that are watching online, those that are here in person. Bruchim Habayim. This week we finish the last parsha of the first book of Bereshis, and therefore the Shabbos, in addition to the name of the parsha Vayechi, it's called Chazak, Shabbos of strength. And indeed, in Shul, as we finish the reading of the parsha, which is the entire first book, we shout out Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek, strong, strong, and be strengthened, because strength, and be strengthened, because Torah is the source of strength. Torah is where we get our chizuk, our strength, and it's not just ours. This is the way it's been throughout history and throughout the generations. Now, it's interesting that Parshas, the Chumash Bereshis, is the longest span of time from all of the Chumashim in Torah. Okay, the entire Torah from creation, which was year 1, till Moshe Rabbeinu passes away at the end of Torah, which is year 2484. The majority of that time is in Chumash Bereshis. Okay, Avraham Avinu was born in 1948 from creation. Don't ask me what the significance, but he's born in 1948. The Jewish people come out of Egypt in the year 2448. And that's when we received the Torah. So over 2,000 years was in the first book, which we're finishing this week. And in the last parsha, Vayechi, he talks about various different things, monumental things. This is a change. The Yidden are now in Egypt, all of the Yidden together, which of course is going to lead, which we'll learn next week, to slavery. After every one of the Shvatim passed away, after each one of the sons of Yakov passed away, the Jewish people started to work and they turned into slaves, and the rest is history. But at the beginning of the parsha, Yakov calls his son Yosef. Yosef is the viceroy of Egypt. He's in the capital. He's dealing with issues pertaining to Egypt. And Yakov is living in Goshen. He's involved in studying Torah, in learning with his grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And here he calls Yosef to his bed. He's ill. He feels that his days are numbered and he's going to pass away. And he asks Yosef for a favor. You are capable of doing this. You're the viceroy of Egypt. I need something from you. And really, it's his final request. His final wish is, do with me kindness of truth, chesed shel emes. Anything which is done for those that passed away is called kindness of truth, because they can't repay the person. It's true kindness. They're not here to pay back, to give something in return for it. So he asks Yosef, my request from you is, I want to be buried in Israel. We live in Egypt. I get that you're the viceroy in Egypt, but I want to be buried in Hebron, in Aras HaMachpelah, together where Avram and Sarah are buried, where Yitzchak and Rivka are buried, where Leah is buried. That's where I want to be buried. And Yosef, of course, says, sure, absolutely. Yaakov, for some reason, doesn't suffice with that, and he says, take an oath. I want you to promise, but not just promise, swear that you are not going to leave me here in Egypt, not even temporarily. You're going to take me and bury me in Israel. And Yosef swore. He took an oath. But the question is, why make him take an oath? Why would you do this to somebody? In general, we know that an oath is a very big deal. It's not something we want to do. We avoid it. Even if it's inconvenient and it's cost money, we avoid taking a shvuah. For example, in Jewish law, if somebody has a complaint against someone else and you have 2 witnesses, these 2 witnesses are powerful enough that the Jewish court could extract from you money based on what they said. They say you owe money. You don't have a counterclaim that's good enough. He has 2 witnesses against you. And you have to pay. If he only has 1 witness, what does that do? It's not good enough to extract money from someone else. But it is good enough to say, swear that you indeed don't owe the money. I don't have 2 witnesses to prove that you owe me money, but I have 1 witness, and that's strong enough to force you to have to prove that you don't owe me money. And the way that proof is done is through an oath. They were sages, righteous people, tzaddikim, anshe ma'isa. They would avoid the oath. They'd rather pay the debt, even though they're innocent. They know they're saying the truth, but they don't want to take an oath. Saying Hashem's name, even on truth, in such a drastic manner, was avoided at all costs. So, why is Yaakov doing that to Yosef? You don't trust him? He said he'll do it.
But this kind of doesn't make sense.
What?
That Tzadikim would admit to something that's wrong. It's not just about them.
No. Taking an oath is not wrong.
No, I'm not.
But it's something which we try to avoid. The issue here is, why is Yaakov insisting that Yosef take an oath that he will bury him in Mitzrayim? Don't make him do that. He said he'll do it. Why don't you trust him? He's your beloved son.
And a tzaddik.
And a tzaddik. Very good. There's no one else in Tanakh, even in Torah he's not, but in Tanakh he's referred to as, is referenced to as tzaddik, Yosef tzaddik. No one else. The only one is Noach. The Torah says ish tzaddik. But Yosef was a righteous person. Very good. And he doesn't, somehow it seems like his father doesn't trust him. About what? About his final request where to be buried. He's not going to play games with that. It's why does he do that? And if you look further, it's even more troubling, because after he agrees and he takes the oath, Yaakov bows down to him. He bends his head in honor to his son who was the king. Now, it's a very big question in halacha if a father is allowed to bow in the way of respect to his son. Okay? Because ish imay v'aviv tiro, Torah says you have to fear your father and mother. So, out of respect to your parents, they don't bow to you. It's inappropriate. And the question in halacha is, the Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Lamed Gimel talks about it. What happens if your son is greater than you? He became a very big Rav, and you have to honor him, but you're the father. What do? It says about the mayor of Rattenberg that when he became the great mayor of Rattenberg, he didn't go visit his father anymore. Not to create this issue of who's standing up for who. So there's different opinions. The Rambam says that, if I'm not mistaken, the Rambam says that indeed he does not have to. He should still do it. Others say they should both stand. One of the explanations, when Avram Avinu left his father Terach, which is considered to be not such a positive thing. Why are you leaving? Old man, you left him? Because Avram is the representative of Hashem in this world. He's telling the world about one God. Terach would have to honor him. And he's his father. So to avoid that sticky situation, which has halachic ramifications, Avram Avinu left. But here you have Yaakov, who bows, and he didn't get on the floor, but his head, he bowed to him out of respect to the king. You could see here that he says, look, this guy is the king. I need something from him. Rashi brings in Aramaic, but he says that when a fox is king, you listen to him, or you bow to him, or you respect him. And it's a parable in the forest where the animals take turns to be king. So 1 month a year, if the fox is the king, everyone listens to the fox. If you need something from the fox, you listen to him. Even though he's not powerful, he doesn't really have anything great. The only plus that the fox has is that it knows how to speak and swindle its way through. It's not a lion. It's not a bear. It doesn't have the strength or the power in that way, but it's his position right now. So Yaakov is recognizing that Yosef is, yes, he's my son, but he's the viceroy. But you see here a pattern. He asked him to do a favor and bury him in Eretz Yisrael. Of course he's going to do it. He said he'll do it. Why not? It's his father's final request about burial. Secondly, he took an oath. He already did. So now you have to lower yourself and put him in this bow. Like for what? You're afraid if you're not going to be nice to him, he's not going to listen to you. He's going to have one against you. Who are we dealing with here? We're dealing with Yaakov and with Yosef. So I want to share several explanations here, and of course a message. Three of the reasons Rashi brings, why did Yaakov want to be buried in Eretz Yisrael altogether? Why was it so important? So first of all, he understood through prophetic vision that there's going to come a time when the Egyptians are going to be plagued. And the third plague is kinim, right? Lice. Yaakov Avinu is going to be buried in the ground. He doesn't want to have to do with any of this lice that's going to be going around. Okay? Fine. Reason number one. Reason number two that Rashi brings is that after Mashiach comes, the dead are resurrected. Tchias HaMeisim, it's one of the foundations, one of the fundamental beliefs of the Jewish people, that when Mashiach comes, there's a resurrection of the dead. Now, the ones that are buried in Eretz Yisrael, they get up when they're here. The ones that are out of Eretz Yisrael, they go through tunnels. Okay? They go through tunnels until they make their way to Eretz Yisrael. Yaakov said, I don't want to have to go through these tunnels. And lastly, he doesn't want the Egyptians to turn him into Avodah Zarah. Why would they turn him into Avodah Zarah? Because when he came to Mitzrayim, it was predicted by Yosef, and that's what was happening, a 7-year famine. Okay, there were 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of hunger. Yaakov came after 2 years of hunger, and he gave a bracha. And thanks to Yaakov's bracha, the hunger finished. Every time that Pare would go to the Nile River, the water would overflow and go through all these trenches and take care of the produce of the land. It would irrigate everything. So they loved him and they appreciated his greatness. And they recognized that he's a holy person. Yaakov said, the last thing I need is I'll be buried here and my grave will become a shrine. They're going to come worship me. Take me out of this place, bring me to Eretz Yisrael. Now, Pare is going to give you a hard time. I recognize that Pare is going to look at this. He's going to say, 1 second. So you came from some foreign country, and now when your family passes away, you go bury them in Israel. So you're still Israeli. You're not really Egyptian, but you're the viceroy of Egypt. But your allegiance is somewhere else. It doesn't look good. Are you also going to leave? Like, I thought you're loyal. I thought you're patriotic. But your father, you send him somewhere else. No, you can't do it. And he gave Yosef a hard time. He wouldn't let him do it. And Yosef said, I promised. I told my father I'll do it. He said, big deal. So you did. He said, well, I took an oath. And Pare said, big deal. So Yosef said, let me remind you something. The very first time we met, when I was a slave, when I was in prison, Yosef says, I was taken out to interpret your dream. And I changed my clothing, I washed up, I got a haircut, and I came to the palace of Pare. Pare was sitting on this huge throne. And to get to this throne, you have to go up 70 steps. Each one of these stairs represented another language. And if you know Egyptian, you could go up to the first level. If you know the next language, you go to the next level. And this way he went higher and higher and higher. And I knew all the languages. Yosef was very knowledgeable in languages. He knew all the languages. And he came up every single level. When I came to the top, he says, I realized, as did you, that I know Hebrew and you don't. So it turns out that Yosef knows more than Pare. Another language. Pare doesn't know Hebrew. And you, Pare, told me, take an oath that the secret remains here. I don't want anyone to know that you know Hebrew and I don't. I took an oath. Pare, if you're going to tell me to break my oath to my father, then oaths are out. When Pare heard that, take him, bury him. So Yosef said, Yaakov is telling Yosef, I need you to take an oath, not because I don't trust you, not because you're not going to listen to me. Of course you're going to listen to me. I need you to have the tool to come to Pare and insist that he'll do that. We're going to take comments and questions towards the end. We're going to take comments and questions a little bit later. So, okay. So that's why he does it. Now, there's another explanation. The Rebbe brings this. It's a very monumental concept, and it carries a very important lesson. Why was Yaakov so concerned? Because he understood that Yosef has a different approach than Yaakov in this regard. What do I mean? Yosef himself, at the end of the parsha, he tells Bnei Yisrael that keep me here. You'll put me in Mitzrayim. The whole Chumash finishes with something seemingly negative, that Yosef was placed in a coffin in Egypt. Really? That's not a way to end the Chumash. And on a high note. It's so sad. Yosef died and he's put on a... Yosef told them, put me here. And when you leave, and there'll come a time that you're going to leave, take me out with you. What's he saying? I want to be with the Yidden in their Golos. I don't want to go to Eretz Yisrael and they'll suffer alone. I want to be with them in their suffering. I want them to have an inspiration. I want them to have a place to go to daven. I want them to know that they're not alone. Yes, Egypt is a foreign place. It's not where we belong. It's not holy. But there's a great tzaddik there. And they're going to recognize that Yosef was sold by his brothers and he went through a lot of hardship and he was a slave, just like they are. And he was tempted and under very difficult situations spiritually, and he overcame them. And he managed to reach high levels where things turned around, and he still stayed true to Yiddishkeit. It's going to be a source of inspiration to him. I want to be local. Yakov said, 1 second, if you want to be local, what are you going to do about me? If you are of the opinion that it's better to be with the Yidden and Golus, you're going to keep me here also. So I'm telling you, you must take me out. Swear that you're going to take me out, because it's against the way you do things. It's not your opinion. Where did he get it from? Yaakov tells him that it's true that I buried Rachel, your mother, on the side of the road. She was not buried in Aras Machpelah. And I know that you have some thoughts about that. You're less than pleased. But you should know, I didn't do it on my own. Al pi hadibur, I did it based on what Hashem said. Why did Hashem want me to bury Rachel over there? That she should be available for the Yidden. When Nebuchadnezzar took the Jewish people in chains as slaves to Babylon, they passed through Rachel's burial place. They were going through the south of Yerushalayim, and they were able to daven there. And she came out, and Hashem tells her that don't cry, everything will be okay. They're going to come back to their land, and so on. It was meant to be. So Yosef's like, okay, I want to be like my mother. I want to be there for the Jewish people. I don't need Maras Machpelah. When they leave, I'll leave. I want to be able to help them. Yaakov explains to him that for you, that's the right thing to do. For me, I have to be in Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because you need someone on the outside to pull you out. Someone that's in the prison can't get out himself. Yes. So you have to have Yaakov in Eretz Yisrael that will daven for the Yidden and pull them out of Egypt. Yosef, you'll be in Mitzrayim, and you'll stay with them. And you'll be their source of inspiration. And they can come and daven. And they know that you're with them. But I need to be out. And that's why you have to take an oath, because your way, the way you're taking after your mother, and the way that correctly is to be here. It's something which the Rebbe explained why a different man named Yosef, which is the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Yosef Yitzchak, Rebbe's father-in-law, Frierdiker Rebbe, why is he buried in New York, in Queens? He survived Stalin. He escaped the Nazis. He dealt with the tide of assimilation and secularism of America of the 40s. And now he can be buried in Eretz Yisrael in a holy place. Well, why in Queens? And the Rebbe explained, for the same reason, that he should be available and a source of inspiration, and that Yidden that are in America could have a place to daven, and know there's a tzaddik here among us, and they can go and pray. And the Rebbe is the same thing. And people go to the oil and they daven. Imagine you have to fly to Israel every time you want to go to the oil. You have to have a tzaddik here, someone that you go to Nasi Hadar, the leader of the generation, and you pray and you ask. And you daven to Hashem that he should answer your tefillah in the merit of the tzaddik. You ask the tzaddik to pray on your behalf. The leader, the Nasi Hadar, the leader of the generation, is the source of inspiration for us. That's what Yosef represented. He was there for the Yidden till the very end. When the Yidden left, they took him with. I want to share a story on this topic that happened with my wife's uncle. He's a shliach in Vienna, Austria, Rabbi Biederman. He related that he started to, as the community was growing, he started to develop a school, a Jewish school. And in the beginning, they bought a small house. They turned it into a few classrooms, and they started to teach. Things were going very well, and parents wanted to send their kids, so they had to buy another house. And they remodeled a little bit, and then they ran out of space. So they were using some kind of hallway, some kind of outer room. It was clear that as the school is growing, they can't start telling people, no, we can't accept you because we don't have room. Jewish kids have to come to learn. So they decided they need to find a place. So there was a Yid by the name of Ron Lauder, who was the ambassador, U.S. ambassador in Austria. And he went to him and he said that we're going to build a school. He said, absolutely. I'll take care of paying for the school, and whatever you need, we'll make the school.
Was he this Ron Lauder?
Yeah. That's the Lauder's son. He said, one condition. I need this to be in a public place, and it has to be beautiful. When people come to Vienna to see the city, they should see the Jewish school. So they hired an architect, a very famous architect in Europe, and they were looking for a place to buy. And as they were searching, he gets a phone call. Some woman is on the line, and she says, I want you to know, I heard you're looking for a school. I want you to know that there is there's a park in the city, one of the most famous parks that belonged to Franz Joseph. There's a section there in the park that the Jewish community owned it, and children before the war that were very ill, they had to be quarantined, they were in some kind of disease, they were kept in that building. And the Nazis made their name be erased. When they came, they burnt this building to the ground. But technically, it belongs to the Jewish people. It's a Jewish community thing. So he went with Mr. Lauder. They went together to the mayor of Vienna. They sat down, and they told him the story. And on the spot, he signed them a lease for 99 years for this property, which means they could build, and no problem. Everything's great. They're getting ready to move ahead with the project, but word gets out that the Jewish community is building a school in the park, a part of the park. And it's a landmark, and it's greenery, and greenery is very sacred in Vienna and in other places, and you can't build a school here. A school doesn't belong in this park. So they started petitions, and they started articles, and they started to protests, and you can't move forward when there's such opposition. And the mayor somehow is not answering phone calls anymore. There's a problem. He doesn't know what to do. Everything is like, he has the money, he has the architect, he has the location, but he's stuck. And then he realized that he started doing this project, and he was rushing, and everything was moving so quickly, he never actually wrote a letter to the Rebbe, which was to be sent to the Rebbe's oil, about this project. It was very quick. He never asked for a blessing. So he sat down, put on his hat and his gartel, and then he sat down and he wrote a letter. He writes a letter, and he faxed it to be read by the Rebbe's oil. And a little while later, he gets a phone call. A head of some Jewish institution, I forget his name now, told him that there's a non-Jew here that wants to meet with you. Okay. Comes for the meeting. He says, this is the owner of the top newspaper in Vienna. There's 3.5 million readers out of 7 million people, 3.5 million readers daily.
Half the population.
Yeah. And he tells him like this. In 1950, I was responsible for an article negative about the Jewish people. And it bothers me. And I don't know how much longer I have in this world, and it's on my conscience. I don't want to leave in such a way. I can't, I want to do something good for the Jewish people. What can I do? In the PR department, my newspaper, what could I do? So he tells him, there's so much negativity against Israel, and so much, let's just say, they're fake news. But they're bringing out that Israel's bad and war crimes, all these terrible things. It'd be nice if you could fix this. Sure, no problem. He walks out, and he wrote a big article that the Jews are, he reversed it. Fine. 2 weeks later, he calls him back, and he says, Rabbi, I got to talk to you. It doesn't do it. I feel very guilty of what I did. I want to do something for the Jewish community. So you realize, 1 second, this is my miracle I'm waiting for. He says, sir, let me tell you. We have this school we're trying to buy. We have a lease from the government, 99 years. We have the money. We have an architect. But the whole city is going crazy, and they're not letting us build it. He said, are you serious? I'll take care of it. And he stormed out of the room. The next day, the headline of the newspaper said, who's against children? And he said a few days later, the headline said, children and trees should grow together. And he kept on pushing and pushing and pushing, and till Rabbi Biderman got a call from the mayor. How come I don't hear from you? Let's go ahead with this thing. We did a vote, and city council, and everyone agrees. Nobody abstained, and I mean nobody protested, and they're able to build the school. This is one example of writing a letter, asking for a bracha. Have a wonderful Shabbos. The Shabbos Chazak. Be strengthened. Strengthen the Torah learning. Thanks for joining. See you again soon.
Maybe with the shed, you spoke about those. Yeah,
Of course, it was Mashiach.
I work with Shulochan, everybody knows. And